Graceland, the estate of legendary singer Elvis Presley, is facing a legal battle now over a potential foreclosure sale.
We have to sell Graceland, and I just looked at him and I said, that will never happen. For nearly 5 decades, Graceland stood frozen in time honoring Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. Millions visited its halls, admired his rhinestone-studded jumpsuits, and left flowers by his grave. But high above them, behind a locked door, one part of the mansion remained untouched, sealed like a time capsule no one dared open. Now, in 2025, that attic door has finally been unlocked, and what was discovered inside left even seasoned archivists shaken. Among the boxes of memorabilia, a chilling discovery stunned everyone, not just lost recordings or forgotten letters, but something far more personal, something human. The real question isn't just what they found in that attic, but who? The day the music died, who killed Elvis? August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley was found unconscious in his private bathroom at Graceland, the very place he once called his sanctuary. He was rushed to the hospital, but hours later the unthinkable became official. The king of rock and roll was dead at just 42 years old. Doctors initially cited cardiac arrhythmia, claiming his heart simply stopped. But fans and experts weren't satisfied. Something felt off. An autopsy team uncovered clear signs of long-term prescription drug use, yet shockingly, Dr. Jerry Francisco, who wasn't even part of the medical team, stepped forward with a public statement insisting drugs played no role in Elvis's death. That declaration stunned the medical community. Many believed it was an attempt to protect Elvis's legacy, but the truth couldn't be buried for long. When the toxicology report was finally released, it painted a disturbing picture. Elvis's system was flooded with powerful drugs, including Dilaudid, Quaaludes, Percodan, Demerol, and codeine, far beyond therapeutic levels. Fans were horrified. How had it gotten this bad? Who had enabled this spiral, and how deep did the cover-up go? And if drugs were involved, what were they so afraid of people finding in the attic above his bedroom? Dr. Nick, the doctor who claimed he was saving Elvis. Enter Dr. George Nichopoulos, better known to the world as Dr. Nick. Between 1975 and 1977, he wrote prescriptions for Elvis Presley totaling over 8,000 doses of powerful medications, painkillers, sedatives, amphetamines. His name was on them all. When questioned, Dr. Nick didn't deny it. Instead, he defended his actions by claiming he was practicing harm reduction. According to him, Elvis was already deeply addicted, and the only way to keep him away from dangerous street drugs was by controlling his supply through legal channels. Incredibly, a jury believed him. He was cleared of criminal responsibility in the death of the king. But the story didn't end there. By 1980, he was facing renewed scrutiny, not just for Elvis, but also for overprescribing to other celebrities like Jerry Lee Lewis. And in 1995, the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners had enough. They revoked his medical license permanently, citing a dangerous pattern of overprescribing. Then came a twist. In 2020, author Sally Hodel published a bombshell book titled Destined to Die Young, arguing that Elvis's death wasn't due to addiction at all but rather a series of genetic heart conditions and chronic health issues masked by his use of prescription drugs. According to her, Elvis wasn't destroying himself, he was trying to survive, trying to manage unbearable pain the only way he knew how. If that's true, if his drug use was misunderstood for decades, then what did the Presley family really know about his condition? And what exactly were they hiding in that attic for nearly half a century? Something so personal, so revealing, it couldn't be shared with the world. Until now. A funeral fit for a king. The day after Elvis Presley's death, grief poured into Memphis like a tidal wave. Nearly 100,000 fans flooded the gates of Graceland, desperate for one last glimpse of the king. His body, dressed in a white suit and blue shirt, lay in state for public viewing, an image burned into the hearts of those who saw it. On August 18, 1977, the funeral procession began. 17 gleaming white Cadillacs rolled through the city, forming a royal escort worthy of rock and roll royalty. Among the mourners were legendary names, James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr., Caroline Kennedy, and of course, Priscilla, Lisa Marie, and Vernon Presley. Elvis was laid to rest next to his beloved mother, Gladys, at Forest Hill Cemetery. But the peace didn't last. Just 2 days later, a bizarre and chilling event shook the Presley family. A group of men attempted to steal Elvis's coffin in a botched ransom scheme. They failed and only ended up charged with trespassing. But the message was clear: Elvis, even in death, was not safe. Fearing another attempt, Vernon Presley made a bold decision. Elvis and Gladys were quietly reinterred at Graceland, inside the meditation garden that Elvis himself had created. The estate, now a fortress of memory and legacy, went on lockdown. Doors were closed, rooms were sealed, and one area in particular, the attic, was locked and never opened again. But why? A grave robbery explains tighter security. But why block off the attic, far from the grave sites? What could possibly be hidden up there that warranted decades of silence? The legend of Graceland grows. In 1957, a 22-year-old Elvis Presley, already a rising superstar, purchased a stately mansion on the outskirts of Memphis. The price $12,500, adjusted for inflation nearly $1 million today, but the home already had a name. Graceland. Elvis didn't rename it, he embraced it. It became his sanctuary, his palace, and his playground. The estate featured everything from sprawling barns and stables to pastures with horses, and even one incredibly mischievous resident, a pet chimpanzee named Scatter. Elvis would dress him in clothes and pull off elaborate pranks that made visitors wonder if the monkey was really in charge. In 1964, Elvis created one of the most serene corners of the estate, the meditation garden. It was filled with flowers, fountains, and white columns. He would sit there for hours reflecting on life and perhaps the pressure of being the king. That peaceful garden would later become his eternal resting place. But it wasn't just the garden that carried mystery. After Elvis's death in 1977, the entire second floor of Graceland, his personal quarters including the bathroom where he was found, was permanently sealed. Even when Graceland opened to the public in 1982, the upstairs was strictly off-limits. Not even presidents or world leaders were allowed up there. Yet even more hidden than the second floor was what lay directly above it, the attic. No photographs, no mentions, just silence. What was it about the attic that made even the Presley family act like it didn't exist? And why, after so many decades, is it only being opened now? A legal battle nearly erased it all. In 2024, something happened that sent shockwaves through Elvis Presley's fan base and the city of Memphis itself. A mysterious company called Nazan Investments and Private Lending LLC attempted to auction off Graceland, claiming that Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter and heir, had defaulted on a loan. It was unthinkable. How could the most iconic home in American music history be at risk of falling into private hands? Riley, now the trustee of the Promenade Trust that owns Graceland, sprang into action. She filed a lawsuit calling the entire transaction fraudulent, alleging forged documents and a scheme to exploit her family's legacy. The drama culminated in a last-minute courtroom battle just 1 day before the scheduled auction. A Tennessee judge intervened, blocking the sale entirely. In his ruling, he called Graceland a one-of-a-kind cultural asset, emphasizing that its loss would cause irreparable harm to the public. Strangely, no one from Riley's legal team or Nazan appeared in court. The ruling stood unchallenged, and Graceland remained safe. But the entire ordeal left behind an unsettling question. What if the court hadn't stepped in? What if a private investor had taken control of Elvis's most sacred space? Would they have stormed the attic, cracked open its secrets, and exposed something the Presley family kept hidden for a reason? The attic is finally open in 2025. After nearly half a century of silence, archivists at Graceland finally unlocked the attic door. There was no press conference, no grand announcement, just a quiet moment as they stepped into a room that had been sealed since the day Elvis died in 1977. What they found inside was nothing short of astonishing. Lining the walls were boxes layered in decades of dust, personal items frozen in time. There were handwritten lyrics scribbled on napkins and torn notebook pages, unreleased photographs capturing intimate moments the world had never seen, private letters, some romantic, others heartbreaking, and piles of unopened fan mail still waiting to be read. There were early concert posters, rare stage outfits, and even some of Elvis's childhood toys, mementos from the boy who became a king. One particular leather jacket stood out. Tucked inside was a small handwritten note that read, "Wear this when you need to disappear." It was eerie, personal, and hinted at a man who may have wanted to vanish from the spotlight. But that wasn't the most chilling part of the discovery. Because what archivists uncovered next didn't just belong in a museum, it had the potential to rewrite everything we thought we knew about Elvis Presley in his final days. Recordings that no one knew existed. Among the dust-covered treasures, archivists discovered a single unassuming box labeled in fading ink, Practice Sessions 1976. Inside were reel-to-reel tapes that had not been touched or heard in nearly 50 years. What they contained left the room silent. These weren't commercial recordings or studio takes. They were raw, intimate rehearsals, Elvis alone, experimenting freely with gospel hymns, soulful blues riffs, and even early synthesizer sounds that hinted at a direction he never lived to explore. But one tape stood out above the rest. On it, Elvis performed a stripped-down, deeply haunting version of Unchained Melody, no instruments, no background vocals, just his voice cracking, trembling, aching with emotion. It had been recorded just months before he passed. It was more than music. It was a confession in melody, a farewell wrapped in heartbreak. And that was only one box. Others contained stacks of unopened fan mail preserved in their original envelopes. Some were from soldiers serving overseas, others from grieving families, young musicians, or lifelong fans. One letter stood out, a plea from fans in 1976 begging him to cancel his tour for the sake of his health. But did he ever see it, or was it tossed into the attic, lost in time, just like the warning signs no one heeded? A boy named Elvis. The items that showed who he really was. Tucked between sequin stage outfits and old recording equipment were artifacts not meant for museum glass, but for memory, quiet, powerful traces of the boy who existed before the king. There was a worn-out teddy bear from his early days in Tupelo, a Bible gifted to him by his mother Gladys, its pages well-thumbed and bookmarked with love, and his high school yearbook, filled with handwritten messages, silly doodles, and signatures from classmates who knew him before the fame swallowed his name whole. These weren't just possessions. They were personal keepsakes saved not for fans, but for himself. Lisa Marie Presley once revealed, "It's comforting. I can come here anytime and rummage through the boxes." That simple comment revealed so much. The attic wasn't just storage, it was sacred ground where the father, son, and man behind the icon still lived quietly in old paper and fabric. And through those boxes, something strange happens. The legend of Elvis the Hip-Hop fades into the background, and in his place stands someone more fragile, more complicated, more real. But now that we've seen the man behind the myth, will the world ever look at Elvis the same way again? Did Elvis really leave the building? From the moment Elvis Presley was pronounced dead in 1977, the world struggled to believe it, and conspiracy theories exploded overnight. Some swore they saw him the very next day at Memphis International Airport using the alias John Burroughs, a fake name Elvis had reportedly used in the past. Others claimed he was spotted ordering food at a Burger King in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Then came the books, Orion, a novel eerily mirroring Elvis's life but ending in a fake death, and claims that Presley had gone underground to escape fame. Soon after, strange recordings surfaced, a voice that sounded like Elvis speaking in hiding, singing, explaining his disappearance. Most were quickly debunked, exposed as impersonators or hoaxes, and yet the belief persisted even into the 2020s. One of the most viral theories insists Elvis is living quietly as preacher Bob Joyce despite obvious age and appearance differences. For many, the idea that Elvis faked his death is more comforting than the truth, that the king could fall so far, so fast. Now with the attic finally opened, some fans feel a sense of closure. The artifacts, the letters, the tapes, they offer a final raw connection to the man they lost. But for others, the discoveries only deepen the mystery. Because if something that intimate and personal was hidden for nearly 50 years, what else might still be waiting somewhere out there in the shadows of Elvis's unfinished story? Final thoughts. The man. The myth. The music. So you see, Elvis Presley isn't just a musician, he's a cultural symbol. He holds more RIA gold and platinum records than anyone. He sold over 500 million records. He starred in Hollywood films. He wore the crown of rock and roll and bore the weight of it. In 2018, he was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But now in 2025, we're still learning who he really was, through old fan letters, forgotten tapes, a worn teddy bear, and an attic that held more than belongings. It held the soul of a man the world never stopped loving. What other secrets might still be waiting in the shadows of Graceland? Were you surprised by what they found in Elvis Presley's attic? Which item gave you chills? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the next video for more incredible stories from the world of music history.